Talk about the Bible. That's a powerful book.
I love it.
I know you do. It's the world's bestseller. It has shaped nations, inspired hope, challenged hearts, and certainly changed lives. In a culture constantly changing, some do wonder if the truth of the Bible will stand the test of time.
Well, I recently headed out to hear what people on the streets really think about the Bible, from deep conviction to honest questions. Their answers really reveal just how differently our world sees the Word of God today.
Do you believe that the Bible is the Word of God?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I don't know. I just believe it.
You just believe it.
I think it's up to everyone's interpretation of how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of a just kind of go with the flow type thing.
My goodness. I mean, you have to have some clairvoyance in what you're thinking about.
I believe once you give everything to Jesus Christ, life is easy, because then you realize what suffering you choose, because, you know, it's walking through daily life. Every day is a struggle. Once you give it to Him, everything is okay.
I'm not religious.
So
Yes.
why?
Why? Evidence. Science. There's been things that have proven it over time. I don't know.
I would say that I believe the Bible is words of men.
I think it needs an update in the sense of most people think, you know, church, they think of old school, everything old. So with everything modern, you know, maybe there needs that update. You know, that's just my 2 cents.
Do you believe that the Bible should be in our laws, in our schools, or should it just be something
The kids should know about it too. But I remember they did have something like that in school and they took it out.
It should probably just be kept private, it's your own belief.
Clearly there's a foundation of modern values and, you know, where the United States kind of, you know, came from. So in the sense of getting rid of that, well, you know, get rid of the foundation, get rid of the culture.
I don't think that we should coincide the two. I think that we don't have other religions that are involved in our stuff, so I don't know.
It's a crucial part of our culture. That's what I was saying. So when you take like I've been working with the Book of Jonah, which is one of the great masterpieces of literature, to say that this can't be part of our culture because it fits into a different category, you're taking a huge part of our culture and some of the most important literary works. And by doing this, you're diminishing the culture very seriously.
I think it should be kept to yourself because the ultimate thing is that the laws are going to be laws regardless, and that's not what's going to be the thing to really change them.
Some people have their own interpretations of the Bible, and I feel like whoever's teaching it would teach it how they perceive it.
through their lens?
Yeah, and not allowing them to have a chance to understand it for themselves. So I would say no.
Do you feel that the Bible should tell people how to live their lives today?
I believe that we all have our own path and our own religion and our own opportunities, and I think that the most important thing is to educate yourself on all religions and see what all the religions say, and then once you have that education and that knowledge behind you, then you can make an educated decision. So I think that if you do that research and you find that that is what you believe, then you should go that route, but I don't think that there's any one clear-cut path for everyone.
No, you can't tell no matter what to do.
No, I think people should live their own life. Their own, you know, whatever they choose to live by or what they believe in, that's their choice.
There's definitely a bunch of lost souls that definitely need it more now than ever. I just think that, you know, there's a certain way to communicate that. You know, we used to look at people on the streets preaching, you know, hey, hell is, you know, tomorrow, with the idea of that's going to bring someone closer to God. I see what the message is trying to say, but there's a better way of doing that. Yeah.
When you study the Bible, it was written in the ancient world, in a somewhat different world, and it was there to help the students of the people who wrote the Bible and the people themselves to attain a higher level of consciousness. So when you read the Bible and you just think about it with your mind, you're not really engaging with the actual consciousness which is supposed to enable you to get to.
I know that some people rely on the Bible for hope and faith and something higher, but you shouldn't be looking outside yourself for that, because even the Bible itself tells you that that power is within you. I mean, if you need something for hope, I mean, it is what it is, but I feel all those answers that you're searching for can be found within.
I would say not to tell them how to live their lives like word for word. Some things you can take from the Bible to inspire you on how to live your life, but I don't say like live by it 100%.
I think that we should all just be kind. I think if anything should be taken out of the Bible, it's that. I think a lot of people get very dogmatic with the rules in there, but I think a lot of it is open to interpretation, and that we all have our own brains and we free will, and you can do with that what you want. But I think that we can get good things out of it. There's good and bad in everything, but the biggest thing I would say on there is love everybody. That's the biggest thing I think to take from it. That's all I got. Thank you.
You met some interesting folks out there. A lot of different views.
Interesting people. But you know, Andrew, I love, first of all, doing things like that where you're interacting with people about the Word of God. But the biggest takeaway is that most people that we spoke with really didn't get that the Bible is the Word of the living God. And if they believed in the Bible that it's a good book, that, you know, but they didn't believe that it should be something that tells people what to do. Like, it shouldn't be in our laws or in our schools. And I just found that very interesting that people were like, well, I believe in the Bible, but I don't want it to tell me how to live.
Yeah, and it's interesting because for people, C.S. Lewis talked about this, for people who say Jesus was a great teacher,
yeah.
But he also said he was the Son of God.
Yeah.
And so it either makes him a lunatic or he's telling the truth.
Yeah.
I'm the Son of God. In a moment, I'm going to tell people something really exciting about the New Testament and a film we have coming out. They might have heard about it. But,
yeah.
you know, the New Testament is especially exciting as well. Yeah. Like Old Testament, phenomenal. But, you know, you've got these Gospels and the 27 books in the New Testament. And while the Gospels are so similar, they're different, too. Like Matthew's a great bridge about Jesus being promised in the Old Testament. Mark reads like a movie. It's action-packed. It's quick. It's quick.
Yeah.
Are you surprised I know? This is just my experience.
I'm just like, wow,
John's
so
very
great.
Theological, they all are, but really deep, and Luke is very comprehensive. And then it's interesting with Paul's letters as you move along, they're not chronological, but they get shorter and shorter and shorter. And it's, you mentioned people don't know it's the truth. Well, if people haven't been taught or studied or examined it or engaged, how would people,
That's the key. There is such a need, and the guy with the blue shirt on, he said it really greatly. He's like, if there's ever a time when people really, really need, there are a lot of lost souls, he said, who need to hear about the Bible. So we as ministers, people who teach the Word of God, we've got a lot of work to do in discipling people, introducing them to the Scriptures, and really letting them know this is the Word of God. This is the Bible that we need to live our lives by.
And some of our viewers are familiar with this new film we've done. It's from CBN Films. Comes the Oracles of God story, New Testament. It's a new documentary exploring how the Gospels that I mentioned, letters and eyewitness testimonies were preserved and passed down through generations for 3 days, November 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. You can see this film in theaters. You can go to cbn.com/tickets. Just in theaters for a few days. Encourage you to check it out. Charlene?
Sounds interesting. In 1965, the installation of a water pipeline led to the discovery of a 1,700-year-old synagogue in an Israeli nature reserve near the Dead Sea. Inside the ruins of the synagogue, excavators found a tiny scroll that was burned beyond recognition. At least that's what they thought. And here's CBN News' Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell with the rest of the story.
Near the shores of the Dead Sea is the desert oasis of Ein Gedi. In the Bible, it's the hiding place of David and a place of inspiration for Solomon. To the north is Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. And to the south, the ruins of Herod's fortress at Masada. Today, Ein Gedi is a nature reserve, one of Israel's most beautiful national parks, and the site of an extraordinary archaeological discovery. The ancient settlement of Ein Gedi was destroyed by a fire in the 7th century. After the fire, the settlement was abandoned until 1970, when the ruins of the community synagogue were excavated.
They found within the synagogue the holy place, the Bama, with the Bible, and they found it all in ashes. And in the ashes, they found a hoard of coins, they found a menorah, and they found a massive amount of ashes that already then they suspected were a scroll, but it was ashes.
Forensics experts tried to decipher the rolled-up scroll, which looked like a cigar. But in 1970, the technology was limited, so eventually the scroll was stored at the Israel Museum. Fast forward to 2015, when archaeologist Sefi Porat retrieved the burned scroll and took it to a team of conservators who work with the Dead Sea Scrolls.
One day he walks in here with this, it was still the top of one of the boxes with all these ashes and says, "Can you please image this?" And I said, "Sefi, you must be joking. This is ashes." He says, "Yes, but they said you have such a system." I said, "Yeah, it's not miracles though. I mean, it's not as if the ashes can come back to life." Eventually it turned out that they could. Nobody, by the way, touches the scrolls. I don't touch them either. It's only these 4 or 5 conservators. And we did a CT scan, a tomography of all of these. And already then, it seemed as if that piece of charcoal was the most promising.
The Israeli team sent 3D scans of the scroll to the University of Kentucky, where Professor Brent Seals used digital imaging to virtually unwrap the scroll and reveal part of the text. After 45 years, the puzzle was finally solved.
He actually looked and saw that within these layers, he could decipher, he could pull out a layer that eventually turned out to be the first chapter of the book of Leviticus. And you can see it, you can read it. How do we know? Because we can read it now. It was amazing. To me, everything is kind of symbolic. And I remember the day that we realized that this is, the book of Leviticus, it was like, we looked at the computer and we said, unbelievable. And I wrote to Brent Seals, "You won't believe what you've deciphered, what you've uncovered."
The Ein Gedi scroll is the second oldest biblical scroll to be discovered, and the oldest ever to be found inside a synagogue.
This scroll was carbon dated, remember, to the 3rd, 4th century. Why did this work? Because the ink that the Ein Gedi scroll was written with probably has iron in it. We realized that the Ein Gedi scroll is different because it has ink and therefore it is legible with this virtual 3D. It can identify the iron that is in this ink. Look how symbolic that the first chapter of the book of Leviticus talks about the sacrifices of the temple, okay? And here we are, and what happens to the sacrifices? They turn into ashes. And here we are bringing alive these ashes. And this was right before Tisha B'Av, which is the day of the destruction of the temple. So everything was very, very symbolic. We were really, in awe. It was like, we're bringing back to life these ashes.
From the ashes, the second oldest biblical scroll. Amazing about the Ein Gedi scroll. Well, if you want more information about what God's doing and as far as what the Bible really is, well, from CBN's film comes Oracles of God, the story of the New Testament. This new documentary explores how the Gospels, the letters, eyewitness testimonies were all preserved and passed down through generations. We've been telling you about this, and for 3 days only, November 2nd, 3rd, and the 5th, you can experience this unforgettable film in theaters across the country. All you have to do is go to cbn.com/for tickets. And Andrew, back to you.
Malcolm Guite has been described as a person who took musical cues from Jerry Garcia and fashion tips from Bilbo Baggins. He's a poet and a priest, and he's using his love of language to kindle people's imaginations for Christ.
I cannot think unless I have been thought, nor can I speak unless I have been spoken. I cannot teach except as I am taught, or break the bread except as I am broken. O mind behind the mind through which I seek, O light within the light by which I see, O word beneath the words with which I speak, O founding unfound wisdom finding me. My name is Malcolm Guite. I'm a priest. I'm also a musician and a scholar. And rather to my surprise, I've become quite widely known as a poet. But what I'm sharing now is something a little more intimate about my own personal story and the way God intervene in my life and help to turn me around. I was born in Nigeria. My dad was very active in the Methodist Church there. He was a local preacher, quite a radical Christian in many ways. One of the things my father said to me very early in my life was that there was no distinction between the sacred and the secular. God isn't just in the box labeled church. God is everywhere. And you can do everything to the glory of God. So I think I had a quite strong sense of God as invisibly everywhere. It was a natural part of my upbringing, and I didn't really see any cause to question it. When I was a teenager, I spent those years at a boarding school in England. That was really traumatic in many respects. I was very, very homesick, and also I was suddenly exposed to every counter view you could think of. I was reading more and more of the kind of stuff that made my faith look ridiculous or outdated. It was the first time I'd been in an atmosphere where mocking contempt for religious people in general was just part of the tone. So there's quite a lot of bullying or other kinds of coercive behavior. I was also occasionally suffering from quite severe bouts of depression because I felt so lonely and persecuted. And at one point, I actually climbed onto a school roof with the thought of throwing myself off it. One of the things that was driving me to that was a sense of guilt, a sense of being unworthy, which was just internalizing the voices of my persecutors. Then I had this moment of complete clarity, it seemed to me. I suddenly thought, what if God isn't there at all? What if everything is, as so many of these other writings seem to say, everything is there for the human making? So I decided that God wasn't there and climbed down off the roof. Later in my teens, my parents weren't able to bring me home for every school holiday. I was sort of farmed out to relatives. And one of these relatives took me to see the famous poet John Keats's house in London. They had up on the wall the words of Keats's Ode to a Nightingale poem. The opening words are, "My heart aches, and a drowsy numbness pains my sense, as though of hemlock I had drunk, or emptied some dull opiate to the drains 1 minute past." So I'm reading this and I'm going, I don't know what it is, but there is a spiritual, non-material, transcendent something happening here. This was a purely literary experience, so I told myself. But of course, what was coming through it was something more than literary. But it was, you know, I had this experience. So I suddenly realized I love this, I could do it. In 1977, I won a scholarship to study English at Pembroke College in Cambridge. One of our professors insisted that you should read the Bible and the Book of Common Prayer. So I set about reading the Psalms, just to make myself familiar with them, really. It was while reading Psalm 145 in a room on my own that I suddenly became absolutely aware of the presence of God. A poetic response to Psalm 145. I turn my inmost being back to you, to magnify and praise you from my heart, whose heart is loving and whose word is true, delighting in this psalm, which played a part in my conversion 40 years ago. An unbeliever then. I thought I'd start to read the Bible as a poet. So I started with the Psalms, and I recall the single verse that changed me and would show me hope at last. The Lord upholdeth all such as fall. Also, he lifteth up all those that are down. The eyes of all wait upon thee. And then a sudden hope sprang up in me that somewhere in that all I might be found. I knelt down and looked up. 1 minute, I was in an empty room, in an empty house, and in some respects, in an empty universe. And the next minute, I was in a presence which was so utterly present. And I had the sensation of being right out on a kind of far edge, and as it were, dangling from a thread. My own existence as this tiny thing on a thread compared with this immense, living, holy presence. And feeling like if he looks away, I disappear. But I can't look at him because it's too bright to bear. It's, you know, I don't belong. I had quite a strong sense of my unholiness, of my contingency, you know, my fall. And I sort of hoped it would go away, you know, like I would go to sleep and wake up the next morning and go, well, that was weird, you know, and just get on with life. But it was just carried on. A few months later, a Franciscan friar who was visiting Cambridge preached a sermon that brought me even closer to an understanding of who God is. I listened to him and he suddenly reached for this metaphor. He said, I want you to think about the utter dependency of the babe in the womb. And I thought he was going to say, this is the way we are with God. And I was like, ready for that. And I thought, yeah, this is how I feel. But he said, it's not the whole truth. That God who creates everything and on whom we're utterly dependent loves us so much. He comes down into the womb of Mary. He becomes the little baby dangling from the thread. He comes utterly defenseless. The one on whom we depend comes utterly dependent to us. Somehow in the middle of all that, the penny dropped. I thought, oh my goodness. My God, whom I now know to be this completely holy presence, also knows what it's like to be one of his own creatures, to be fully human. And I went back to the chaplain and I said, I think I can say the Gloria now, you know. And so I did. I certainly felt as though something that had been severely dislocated in me was falling back into place. So I felt a greater integration. Eventually, I began to realize that God was calling me not simply to be a Christian, but within that, to take on the ministry of priesthood. So I was ordained in the Anglican Church. The first few years of ministry were, you know, very fruitful, but very demanding, and I didn't do poetry. I had 2 parishes. I was the chair of 16 different committees. I was supposed to be organizing all kinds of projects, all of which I was bad at and feeling stressed because, like, I was not made to do that. Meanwhile, I went on a retreat. The thing that this retreat was meant to do was to try to distill down into a single sentence what you thought your particular mission from God was. So my sentence was to use my love of language and my facility for it to kindle my own and other people's imaginations for Christ. So I thought, okay, I need to reshape this. I need to say, this is what I'm doing.
Thank you very much.
I'm spending more and more of my time and energy as a poet.
Set on the soul's acropolis, the reason stands.
And I see that now. My vocation as a poet and my vocation as a priest were really 2 sides of the same coin. I hope my poetry jostles the soil of the imagination, so that when the real sower and the real seed come, they fall in good ground and can take root. O sounding song, whose depth is sounding me. O memory of time, reminding me, my ground of being always grounding me, my maker's bounding line, defining me. Come, hidden wisdom, come with all you bring, come to me now, disguised as everything.
Charlene, we do profiles and features and testimonies of people whose lives have been captivated by God. Sometimes they're on a jail cell floor, other times they've got a gun to the head. And here's a gentleman who fell in love with Jesus through 1 psalm and 1 verse, captured his heart and his mind.
It's amazing that he literally went to read the Psalms so that he could become familiar with it. But what he found was God. In the Word, God. He found God. His search was over because he was longing for purpose, because he was trying to find the truth. And the fact that he said that something that was dislocated within him was now fixed. That's what God does, Andrew.
And sometimes we encounter people who seem like they've never had a question in their faith. They've never struggled in their faith walk. And here's an example of someone who really wrestled with God, the existence of God. Where does he fit in to God's love? And he just,
in a crisis,
in an intellectual process and through his heart, he's found the Lord and says, I know my gift, and that's what I'm going to use to reach people.
Priest
Beautiful
and the
story.
poet.
Here's Isaiah 40. The grass withers, the flowers fall, but the word of our God endures forever. Check out Psalm 145. It changed Malcolm's life. God bless you.